thanks to CJ McCollum and this new CBA, I think we're going to start to judge general managers different than we had in the past, where it used to just kind of be focused on the main moves, which I get it. When you make a blockbuster trade or you have a top 3 pick, it's super important to your franchise. But now, more than ever, it's going to be the moves on the margin that these guys are going to be judged upon in creating salary cap flexibility and not loopholes, but manipulating your salaries moving forward, because there's so many rules, so many stipulations, and it's just going to be difficult. But thankfully, I think for us, Dub Nation, Dunleavy seems to be ahead of the curve right now, right? And he makes 2 moves yesterday. It was kind of confusing. I made the video. I had spoke too soon. I was like, all right, well, we did this and let's talk about it. And then boom, something else happens. And so we trade the 52nd pick to Oklahoma City for Waters III, the lanky shooter, 26-year-old out of Oklahoma. OKC then trades that pick to Portland. Dunleavy buys it back and finally drafts a big man, right? Now, I don't know the exact loopholes and stipulations of it. I had read you can no longer buy draft picks, but once we had not had one, there's all this nuance to it in these little side moves that are going to start to add up and be much more important than take like a Rob Pelinka or someone, Rich Paul and Clutch, and these guys manipulating these big contract situations. You better have a money guy. You better have a guy that's making these smart side moves moving forward, because I can't make sense of all these rules at once. We're just going to have to learn it as it goes, right? The consequence of buying that pick back and making this draft pick was it has hard capped them, meaning essentially the Warriors have less money to offer Klay Thompson. At least that's my understanding to it. And Klay's got to be sick watching Emmanuel quickly get $175, right? What are they going to pay OG $215? So I get it. These guys, these egos and stuff like that, but that's just what the youth in the market are getting. Now, the reason I didn't jump right back into a video yesterday was I wanted to get clear what had actually happened here. And then I spent last night, looking at the tape at Quinten Post and Reece Beekman. But let's start with the big fella. Quinten Post, by way of the Netherlands, 7 foot barefoot, 244 pounds, 7'2" wingspan. Athletically, I don't like to talk too much about this. I do think it's more interesting when you're looking at big guys as opposed to like the casual 6'6", 6'4" guard, right? When you look at the measurements in the draft, now Alex Sarr went, second to the Wizards, is supposed to be this agile, modern, rim-protecting big guy, right? Sarr and Post, very similar in the lane agility and shuttle run. 11.48 for Quinten, 11.43 for Sarr. But then Post had the higher shuttle run with 3, as opposed to the 3.23. I don't want to get too numbery here, but basically what that means is he's as agile and as quick as Sarr, really where it matters for a big man, in the paint. You guys know what I'm talking about? The shuttle run, where it's like this reactive kind of lateral stuff in the paint. And that's what matters most for these big guys. So I thought that was interesting because, you can only do so much with natural foot speed and quickness. But I think there is a technique as far as anticipation, kind of reflexes, and you can get better. That's what I always see when I see in high school, like a heavier, slower kid who's playing, in the post or playing as the big. It's like, well, you don't got to get super fast. Get quick within the paint, moving laterally. And Quinten Post, while, is not going to be super fast getting up and down the floor, I think he's agile and quick where it matters, in the paint laterally, up and down, foul line to rim. Now, as far as the other athletic measurements, not bouncy. Not very vertical. In fact, I think he had the worst vert in this year's class, 27 inches. But, he's 7 foot without shoes. He's got a 9'4" standing reach. which after Klingon and Edie, that's number 3 on the board. So it's not like, there's a lack of verticality with him, right? And I like that he's foreign from Amsterdam, probably knows how to have a good time. But I think that what I've noticed is when it comes to the big men in particular, the foreigners have less Great Dane syndrome. And what I mean by that is, you know how Great Danes, dog, if you're not a dog person, you probably don't know, but like these bigger dogs, they can be kind of docile and gentle, right? They're shy because they're these big giant dogs and they don't want to scare people. So innately, they're kind of shy and gentle for the most part, right? And I think a lot of American bigs, James Wiseman, a great example, right? If you're 6'8" when you're in 7th grade, you innately, you don't want to like scare and intimidate people. So you become kind of shy and not as an aggressive person. You don't own your size. And what I've noticed is European bigs, different foreign, it doesn't have to be European, but the foreign bigs seem to own their size more. They're more comfortable being a 7-footer. And so I like that. And, he looks like he likes the smell of his own farts, and I think that's good, right? You want a guy who's a little nasty when he's a big man. No, but let's talk a little bit about his game. What's going to stick out is, well, he shoots the ball and he shoots it pretty dang well. What was he like? 42% from 3 at a pretty high number for a big man. And what I like about the shot is it looks good, right? It's a high release. I like that it seems like he doesn't get sped up. In watching the tape that I saw last night, he understands, hey, I'm 7'1". I'll let this thing off at my own leisure. He doesn't get sped up and you say, yeah, well, duh, right? He's a big guy. He should do that. But that's not always the case. You look at a Karl Towns, a Jaren Jackson Jr., some of these guys, these big shooters, they get sped up and shoot the ball as if they can't get it off whenever they want. And when I look at Quinten, he seems to understand, hey, I'll shoot it when I want. And it leads to a nice, smooth, consistent release at well over 40%. Now, what I don't like is he's pretty soft in the paint. He doesn't look for contact. I know he's got that little jump hook over the left shoulder, but even when he shoots and makes that, he kind of fades away. He doesn't drop the shoulder into guys. And when he gets downhill, like he gets run off the 3-point line, it's a Euro step and kind of a weak floater. Not to say he doesn't have touch, but I would like to see him initiate the contact and be far more physical in the paint instead of like these kind of soft floating shots. And then the fact that he's not vertical, right? And so he doesn't have a lot of pop. So I could see him struggling in the paint finishing despite him, there's a lot of highlights of him scoring in the post. I don't know how effective that will be at the NBA level, but again, that's not why they drafted him. They drafted him to come down into that trail 3, pick and pop, be able to play 5 out. He's got the high post passing, right? He can make those backdoor reads and handoff reads. But there's always give and take when it comes to an athlete and certain attributes. And the fact that he doesn't have a lot of bounce, right? He's not vertical. In turn, I think has made him have very good positioning and timing, particularly on the defensive end. Now, he's a drop big. You're not going to have him switch. He's not that mobile, right? But you see his timing. He does a great job when he's rotating over to contest a shot. Instead of leaping and trying to go clean it up in one big giant leap and step, he closes the distance on the ground and then contests late and gets vertical late. And so he's got very good timing and a sense of angles and rotating over on the ground because he knows he can't get up and pin it at the square, right? He's got to do it more methodically with timing and positioning. It kind of reminds me of Marc Gasol. I see shades of Marc Gasol. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to say he's going to be at that level. Gasol won a Defensive Player of the Year, but I think it's the same. He's the same type of smart defender with that size and timing. And he just does a great job staying vertical. He needs to work on his body. He does. I think that despite, his measurements, he doesn't play as strong as they suggest, but where you do see the size and weight is when he gets vertical, right? You can't go through his chest at 245, 250 pounds. He does have that weight about him, but I'd like to see him play with more force on the offensive end, but the shooting looks very real. And again, never sped up. He's going to take his time, understands that he's been big. I don't think it was, some of these guys have like a late growth spurt, right? Like the Anthony Davises, where it's like, he was a guard and then now, right? And you can see it in their game. You can tell that Quinten has been a big man, ever since he's been playing basketball. It's funny though, because we all run to YouTube and look at the highlights and tape. I like to actually go look at complete games so I can get better context. And I'm sure I will do that here next week for patrons. But it's so easy to get hyped with these highlight videos, right? And you're like, well, look at this guy. He's shooting the three. He blocked like 2 blocks a game. Like, again, he's a rim protector. He's a legit shot blocker. He just does it in a different way. It's not the JaVale McGee snatching it out of the air. It's out of positioning and timing. But you're like, well, man, this guy, like, wow, what a steal, right? You see all the tweets from different fan bases. I can't believe y'all let us get this guy here, right? Everybody, right? But then you realize, like, 52 teams passed on Quinten Post because Portland sold us back the pick. Right? So you just have to keep that in perspective. I definitely think he's going to make the roster. And again, back to Dunleavy and the GMing in the current day NBA. You saw it with Trace last year. You're probably going to see something similar with Quinten, where it's going to be a long-term super bargain deal. And we may have found, a backup center or a role-playing big man on the super cheap. It's going to be so crucial moving forward. Now, do I think he'll be in the rotation nightly? I don't know about that, right? He is an older player. He's ready to contribute now, but I don't know about him playing every night. But against the Denvers, against the Wolves, against the Lakers, these bigger teams, he could be that stretch guy to pull their bigs out, right? It could be situationally. He could be a designated hitter. But we also know, like, look, the league is trending towards bigger players, right? Everyone is adding size to their bench. They may not be starting. And so I think that there will be more nights where he can play than maybe I think we initially think on paper. We also signed Reece Beekman, 4-year senior out of Virginia, 6'1", 195 pounds. Another Milwaukee kid. And we like the Milwaukee boys, right? To a 2-way contract. So I'm excited to see him at Summer League. Couple of numbers from him at the Combine. Second fastest 3-quarter sprints. Bursty, right? 6'6" wingspan, 38-inch vert. But more importantly, it shows up on the court. A lot of these kids, I'm sure a lot of you have been doing this too for a long time. I've been watching the draft and scouting and paying attention to these kids since like 95 or 6, right? And so before the internet, you didn't get these numbers as easily. But what you come to realize is you'll always see, when you look at these measurements, there'll be a handful of these guys that are just off the charts, right? 40-inch vert, and then you turn on the tape and you're like, yo, I don't see that, right? It's not functional to their game basketball-wise. With Reece Beekman, it shows up on the court. He's got a pop to him. He's got an athletic pop to him. And he looks like a dog. He looks, again, I'm throwing these names out here with undrafted 2nd-round pick guys, but shades of Colin Sexton, hopefully without the crazy, right? But that type of energy of like, I'm just like a really high motor and just a suddenness to his game. But what I like most about the highlights that I looked at, first off, another Virginia player. Shout out Ty Jerome. Virginia kind of has a type. You look at like Baylor, there's certain Virginia, they're going to be asked to defend and they're going to be tough, generally speaking, right? But what I liked most about the tape with Beekman was not just that he defends, he looks like he likes to defend. He looks like he likes to defend, and you just can't teach that, right? I think that's Bronny's route. I don't know how much he likes to. He can, but like if a kid's athletic enough, right, has the tools to defend, and then he likes it, he takes pride in it, then you may have something. But the shooting, that 31% at Virginia from 3, and the few makes that I saw him and takes, he's not a high volume 3-point shooter. His upper body, he doesn't look like he gets great extension. It looks a little cramped Not backpack Draymond style, but just he doesn't get great extension in it. So that'll always be kind of like with so many of these prospects, hey, can he spread the floor? But I think really if Reece is to make it, he's going to hang his hat on being a push the tempo, distributing defensive demon, right? Of the Pat Bev, the Jose Alvarado, the TJ McConnell, of that ilk. Right? I don't think it's going to be like, hey, you need a 40% shooter, because he's got a lot of other attributes. The question is, can he buy into that role and embrace it? And so, yeah, we're sitting here yesterday afternoon looking like, this is, but now all of a sudden, I think we have an interesting summer league roster with big Quinten Post and now Reece Beekman. I want to say Beckham for some reason, but Beekman, I got to get that down. And I'm sure they'll probably add a couple other interesting prospects to this summer league roster. And like I said, again, patrons, I don't know. The Summer League starts quickly, right? The 4th is Thursday. There's the California Classic and then Vegas. So on my Patreon, I will cover all the Warriors Summer League games. And that's where I'll get some more details and tape and scouting on these new additions, as well as breaking down these Olympics with Steph. So that's going to be fun. It's a great way to support the channel. I'll put the link in the description. It's as little as $2 a month. Support your boy. It's well worth it. But yeah, all of a sudden we end up with kind of some, granted, keep your expectations where they should be, but some intriguing prospects to this roster. Now we wait. I think the next thing to fall is this Chris Paul option, right? Are they going to extend it? Are they going to pick up the option? What's going on, right? I think it's all going to start to unfold here. Saturday is the Paul George opt-in decision, and then we're going to see a domino effect, and I'll be right back here to cover it. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.